Part 60. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens. Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 591. Apparently, if such a large-scale force is deployed, the other party will try its best to kill Sul Yang. This is certainly not a force that one person can send out. Sul Yang frowned and made a bold guess. Could it be that those who oppose us have joined forces? Yuji also guessed that only a few Abyss Kings joining forces could, or would be willing to, send such a large number of Abyss Kings to attack Sul Yang. Perhaps those neutrals are also involved. Sul Yang's expression was slightly cold. Those neutral factions claimed to be neutral, but in fact they had their own agenda. Maybe they wouldn't take action against Sul Yang directly, but they would naturally not refuse to cooperate with other kings to deal with Sul Yang. No matter what, be careful in the remaining days. Sul Yang took Yuji's hand and subconsciously protected Yuji behind him. If the attack fails, they might use other methods. Well, I understand. Yuji nodded, but there was a happy smile on her pretty face, and her beautiful eyes were shining like stars. My strength is much stronger than yours. How could I still need your protection? But when you encounter danger, the first thing you think of is to protect me. I'm very, very happy. Return to the room. Sul Yang set up a warning sword array at the door of the room, and then he breathed a sigh of relief. This sword array does not have any killing effect, it only serves to warn of danger. After all, for some strong men, even a little bit of murderous intent leaking from a sword formation will make them alert. On the contrary, he is such a pure and vigilant existence, and will not alert others. Next, let's have a good rest here. Sul Yang turned around and said to Yuji with a smile, there isn't much time left, it's easy to pass it by. Yeah. Yuji nodded in agreement, agreeing very much with Sul Yang's proposal. Anyway, as long as I am with you, I am very satisfied and happy. As for where? In fact, it doesn't matter at all, as long as I have you, as long as it's you, everything is fine. Sitting next to Yuji, Sul Yang thought carefully. Now the situation is a little chaotic. For the two of them, although they are not afraid of other people's overt and covert attacks, there is no need to look for trouble. It's safest to stay in the room. But there are still several days left, and it doesn't feel right to be bored like this all the time. You should always think of something fun. While thinking about it, Sul Yang took the wood carving in his hand and made something that two people could play with. But at this moment, there was a knock on the door suddenly. Sul Yang frowned, walked forward and opened the door, only to see that there was just an ordinary person outside the door, holding a large sumptuous meal in his hands. What's your business? Sul Yang asked with a frown. Little man, I'm here to deliver food to you too. Facing Sul Yang's power, the man was so frightened that he trembled all over, but he still persisted in speaking. Delivery of food? There was obviously no movement before, but today food suddenly started being delivered? Something feels wrong. Sul Yang picked up the food and smelled it gently. Under the tangy fragrance, he actually felt a little dizzy. There is extremely poison in these meals. Sul Yang suddenly opened the door and grabbed the food delivery person. You brought poisonous things to us. Has it been discovered? The abyss creature had some surprise on its face. Available immediately. This surprise turned into deep hatred. It's ridiculous that a mere human being wants to embark on the road to becoming emperor. You are not worthy. Say it. The man actually bit him hard, then vomited blood and died immediately. Death warrior? Sul Yang frowned and searched with Yuji, and soon found out the identity of this person. He is just an ordinary person, with average cultivation, average talent, and usually quite timid. It can be said that he is simply an inconspicuous existence. But this inconspicuous existence suddenly took action against Yuji and Sul Yang today, and immediately killed himself after the incident was exposed. If there was no one behind it, Suliang wouldn't believe it at all. But unfortunately, this whole thing seems to be his own behavior. It's really too abnormal. Suliang was still thinking about this matter until he returned to his room. And in the following time, more than one such thing happened. For a time, conflicts broke out frequently, and countless people secretly took action to put Suliang to death. In the end, even Yuji had a problem. There seems to be something wrong with my people. Yuji looked at the urgent message and frowned. Let's go and see it together. Suliang stood up immediately. At this juncture, there was a problem with the legion controlled by Yuji. Suliang couldn't help but think about it. Well, let's go together. Yuji nodded, pulled Suliang, and the two of them flew all the way. At such a fast speed, even the attackers hiding in the dark did not react. Just in the blink of an eye, the two of them arrived at the place where the legions brought by Yuji were stationed. What happened? Yuji subconsciously protected Suliang behind her and asked in a deep voice. Everything she saw was peaceful. Although there is only one team here, it seems that there is no chaos at all. To know. The news she had received before was that someone in her legion was causing trouble, causing a fight and chaos. Thank you, Your Highness. The squad leader suddenly stepped forward and bowed to Yuji. Immediately, he actually pulled out the long knife from his waist and slashed at Suliang. At the same time, Your Highness, take action quickly and restrain this man together. The squad leader yelled like this, as if Yuji was on his team. And it was at this moment that this person took action. The other team members with him took action at the same time and attacked Suliang. From this point of view, it seems more like Yuji is complicit in their conspiracy. However, faced with such clumsy alienation techniques, Suliang didn't even bother to think about it. I trust Yuji very much, just like my wife. Suliang's voice was low and cold, but you guys want to trample on this trust, how can I spare you? Just for a moment. The entire team was killed in Suliang's hands. However, at this moment, Suliang and Yuji did not feel relaxed. Looking at each other, both of them could see the solemn look in each other's eyes. Even the legion controlled by Yuji had problems. There is really an undercurrent in this Abyss Council. Even one of my men had an accident, this is really an unexpected situation. Yuji frowned and said to Suliang seriously, I'm sorry, I didn't expect it to be like this. Her subordinates are all creatures of the Abyss, so Yuji's true intentions and intentions will naturally not be told to them. After all, helping the present world is completely unacceptable to the beings in the Abyss. However, it is precisely because of this. Yuji is also extremely strict in controlling her subordinates. There is almost no Abyss creature in the border area that does not obey her orders. But even so, something like this happened to her army. Is there someone behind the scenes, or? For a moment, even Yuji found it difficult to think clearly. If you want to investigate, there is no way to start. I will definitely investigate this matter as soon as possible. Yuji told Suliang seriously that she must ensure that all her people are safe and reliable. After all, her men were not the only ones around the Abyss Council. There are also many legions under the command of several other kings. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 592. Such a huge number of existences cannot be easily dealt with by Yuji and Suliang. Once the other Abyss Kings take action, even Suliang and Yuji will have to evacuate in advance if they do not have their legions. It's nothing, you are just one person. Suliang smiled at Yuji and didn't care too much, there is no airtight wall in this world. You are just a person. No matter how careful you are, you will inevitably make some mistakes. It is normal for some people with ulterior motives to mix in. Let's go back first. While talking, Suliang took Yuji's hand and took her back. However, your legion must be investigated carefully. This is just in case. Now is not the time to use all the back tricks, but they still used your people. You don't need to think about it. You must still have many back tricks hidden by the opponent. Yes, I understand, don't worry. Yuji smiled at Suliang and finally breathed a sigh of relief when she saw that Suliang was not angry. But then, Yuji's eyes turned cold. It was because he trusted himself that he dared to follow him deep into the abyss with just a life spring of transcendence, or even just the cultivation of the sea of suffering. Everyone in the world is an enemy, even with his own cultivation level, he is very dangerous, let alone him. However, he could still make such an omission. It's unforgivable, no matter who is behind it, it's unforgivable. I betrayed his trust. Sooner or later, I will have to settle this grudge with you. Return to the Abyss Council. Suliang and Yuji carefully investigated the Legion under Yuji and figured out the general situation. He never went out again. The current situation is very complicated, with undercurrents surging. As the 10-day deadline approaches, all kinds of conspiracies and schemes and ulterior motives are rushing towards Suliang and Yuji. Volume 1 Chapter 526, even though I know I can't do it, I still have to commit suicide. Under such circumstances, it is indeed a little dangerous to walk outside as arrogantly as before. The two of them are not afraid of these dangers and threats, but they should not ask for trouble if it is not necessary. Now, in the room. What's the point of this game? Yuji looked at a small box that Suliang placed in front of her in confusion, and asked in confusion. Just think of it as an improved version of Whack-A-Mole. Suliang chuckled lightly and introduced the rules. I control the appearance of these gophers, and what you have to do is hit them on the head with a small hammer the moment they appear. Using 50 as the limit, if I dodge more, I win, and if you hit more, you win. How about that? That's all. Yuji blinked her eyes, feeling that it seemed very simple. His cultivation level is strong, even if it is just a little bit. His eyesight and reaction ability are much faster than before. Not to mention that the difference in cultivation between her and Suliang was not just a little bit. There was no way she could lose such a game. That being the case, those who lose should be punished. Yuji looked at Suliang seriously. After hearing this, Suliang immediately understood Yuji's thoughts. Are you going to attack yourself again in the name of punishment? But do you think you will win? Suliang chuckled, full of confidence. Okay, come on. Those who lose cannot resist no matter what the punishment is. Yuji confirmed. Yes, you can't resist any punishment. Suliang nodded and agreed. Then, soon, the game started and ended quickly. Suliang fell into deep thought when he saw that he didn't get any points. This is wrong, how could I lose so miserably? In order to confuse Yuji, he even used fake movements, micro-expressions, etc. How could he not get a single point? You lose. You must not resist or refuse the punishment that was agreed upon. Yuji put her hands on her hips and said to Suliang very proudly. Well, what punishment do you want? Suliang looked at Yuji expressionlessly. He never expected that the final result would be like this. Let people think about it. Yuji blinked her eyes and thought for a moment, then suddenly approached Suliang and exhaled like a blue breath. I've served you so many times, why don't you take the initiative once? Just like last time. You sure? Suliang asked seriously. Of course it's confirmed. Yuji nodded, her face full of sincerity and determination. Okay, as long as you don't regret it. Suliang helplessly spread his hands. Since Yuji wanted to die on her own, how could she refuse? Then, after a while, Suliang looked at Yuji, who had dull eyes and was panting slightly, and sighed helplessly. She obviously knows how to tease others better than anyone else. but when it was his turn, he just couldn't do it. Knowing that I can't do it, I still have to commit suicide. There is absolutely no self-awareness. This Queen of the Abyss is just a dish. Okay, the punishment is over, let's play another game. After Yuji rested, Suliang took out another game he made. Just kidding, how could Suliang continue to play with Yuji when he knew he would lose the game? There's nothing wrong with him. At the same time, on the Holy Mountain, in the mansion in the city, Qin Benjao and others are living their daily lives without their husband. Simply put, one by one, they all lay weakly on the table in the courtyard, relatively speechless. Life without your husband is extremely boring. I don't even want to eat. But at this moment, there was a wave of space fluctuations, and the space in front of the girls was torn apart. The figure of the Lord of Yinghuo appeared in front of the girls, and when he opened his mouth, they were all shocked. Your men are in danger. The Lord of Yinghuo said to the girls seriously and urgently, if you want to save him, you must listen to me. Chapter 801 Team up and enter the abyss. Waiting in the living room. The girls of the Su family sat together and frowned as they looked at the Lord Yinghuo, who was sitting aside calmly drinking tea. Originally, although they were bored today, they were still happy. They were all waiting for their men to come back. But the Lord of Yinghuo suddenly appeared and said that their man was in danger. They won't believe this kind of thing subconsciously, okay. Although the cultivation level of his own men has not reached the top of the world. But his strength is extremely strong, and it is not impossible to fight across the border. Even if he encounters an existence that he cannot defeat, it is still no problem to leave. How could it be at stake? What's more, he is accompanied by the Queen of the Abyss. Of course they wouldn't trust the Queen of the Abyss too much, who was supposed to be their enemy. But from the eyes of the Queen of the Abyss, they saw an emotion, the same emotion they felt towards Suliang. Based on this feeling alone, they also believe that the Queen of the Abyss will never let her men have any problems. What you said is true. Wan Qing squinted her eyes and looked at the Lord of Yinghuo, with a sense of danger in her eyes. Compared to the Queen of the Abyss, the Lord of Yinghuo in front of them was even less trusted by them. After all, although the Lord of Yinghuo appears rarely, every time he appears, he has a conspiracy against them. The first time Zimei appeared, she almost caused Suliang to fall. The second time, she made Yang Kaoj go berserk. Such a person would actually tell them dangerous information about their own men? How can they believe this? Believe it or not, it's all up to you. The Lord of Yinghuo said calmly, I have brought the news, but as for how to act, you can decide for yourself. If you don't care about Suliang's life, you can just pretend that I didn't say anything. As soon as these words came out, all the girls frowned. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 593. Just as the Lord of Yinghuo said, even if the Lord of Yinghuo was not trusted by them, they couldn't ignore this news. After all, it is about your own man. What if your own man really encounters some danger? Even if there is only 1% chance, they will definitely take action. I think we should be able to trust her. Qin Benjao raised her hand and spoke cautiously. As her teacher, Qin Benjao certainly believed in the Lord of Yinghuo. Certainly. It's not just that, whether it's the inexplicable closeness she feels from the Lord of Yinghuo, or what she feels, the Lord of Yinghuo seems to always be for the good of her husband. It was enough to make Qin Benjao trust him. However, even though he claimed to be the royal palace, no one paid any attention to Qin Benjao's words at this moment. Of course, Qin Benjao alone doesn't have the final say whether she believes it or not. Volume 1 Hashtag Chapter 527, Making Trouble in the Nine Realms, Wanting to Return Lang Jun. I remember that the rampage of my doll body was probably because of you. 11 He Ying suddenly said, she remembered very clearly what the Lord Yinghuo did to her. But, thinking about it carefully, the damage to the doll's body also allowed her to regain her emotions and be able to face Suliang normally. Thinking about it this way, it seems that this is not a bad thing. It's me, but so what? The Lord of Yinghuo said calmly, without feeling at all that he had done anything wrong. The other side. Ji Hongchen also suddenly spoke up, I remember, when we were in the original demon sect, it was you who detonated the demon seed and wanted me to lose control and go berserk. That time, she almost caused Suliang's death, but it was also at that time that she confirmed her intention and followed Suliang until now. Thinking about it this way, it seems that I don't hate the Lord of Yinghuo in front of me that much. What's going on? Zai Mei is your subordinate and almost caused an accident to your good disciple. Chao Ji's incident was also planned by you. How can you expect me to trust you? Wan Qing sighed and changed the subject, but even if there is even half a chance of what you said, we have to believe it. So, tell me, what happened over there, my dear disciple? As long as Master is in danger, he will rush over no matter what. Even in the face of endless danger, he must rush to his Master's side and protect him. The Abyss Council reopened. Suliang obtained the Emperor's certificate and participated as the Emperor's heir. The Lord of Yinghuo explained concisely, however, among the 9 kings of the Abyss, except for the Queen of the Abyss who is following Suliang, no one else wants to see Suliang succeed at all. As soon as these words came out, all the girls understood. What would they do if the only emperor in the world became an abyssal creature? Of course, stop and eliminate him at all costs. That is to say, is my husband going to face 8 other kings besides the Queen of the Abyss? What's the difference between this and being the enemy of the whole world? All in all, the situation on Suliang's side is very complicated and dangerous. Even the Queen of the Abyss can hardly guarantee his safety. So, it's our turn to show up. One Abyss Queen can't do it, but what about all of us together? Of course you have to protect your husband. Then, Wan Qing immediately stood up and said to the girls, everyone, pack up. We will set off immediately to the Abyss. No matter what, we must bring our good disciple back. Yes. The girls immediately nodded in agreement, returned to their respective places, packed their belongings, and prepared to head to the Abyss. Wait until all the girls leave. The Lord of Yinghuo also tore apart the space and disappeared in place, as if he had never appeared. In front of an exotic passage. The girls were neatly equipped and took a deep breath as they looked at the wide-open foreign passage in front of them. As long as you step into it, what you have to face is the entire abyss. It can be said that this is truly the enemy of the whole world. But, so what? As long as I can bring my husband back safely. So what if the whole world is your enemy? There is nothing to be afraid of. Not to mention, my husband has been going to the abyss alone for a long time for himself and to completely end the evil. My husband is not afraid, how could I be afraid? Come on, let's go in. Wan Qing said to the girls, be careful. Just bypass the people under the Queen of the Abyss and head directly to where the good disciple is. According to what Lord Yinghuo said, we don't have much time and we can't waste it on the road. Clear. All the girls nodded. Although the creatures of the Abyss are definitely enemies to them, the Queen of the Abyss is not like that for the time being. At this moment, the Queen of the Abyss's men have lined up in front of the foreign passage. Once they encounter them, it will definitely be an endless battle. Wan Qing and others are very confident that they can definitely win, but finding their husband is the most important thing. If they struggle with them, what will happen even if they win? After everything is ready. The girls looked at each other and nodded slightly. Immediately. Step into the passage of a foreign land and embark on a journey to find your husband. As for all this, Suliang and Yuji still know nothing about it. In the abyss. Qin Benjao and others bypassed the border and went straight into the depths of the abyss, hoping to go to the Abyss Council and find their husband. However, as soon as they reached the abyss, they were a little confused. You know, what is the Abyss Council, how to get there? Tan Kinja asked a little confused. They did know the Queen of the Abyss, but when they were in front of Yuji, no one would have thought that one day they would come to the abyss. No one even thought of asking for a map of the abyss. Not to mention, the 9 abyss realms are governed by 9 abyss kings respectively. It's unclear whether Yuji has maps of the regions under the control of other kings. When they faced the Lord of Yinghuo before, they were only worried about their husband, and they didn't even think about asking Yuji for an abyss map or anything. What should I do? For a while, all the girls were a little confused. Why don't you ask someone? Qin Benjao thought for a while and suggested, see if there are any towns nearby. Maybe we will find them there. Good idea. The girls were stunned for a moment, and their eyes lit up. According to the information from Lord Yinghuo, it was during the Abyss Parliament at this moment, and all the Abyss Kings gathered at the Abyss Parliament. In other words, among the 9 realms of the Abyss, there is not a single king at the moment. That being the case, wouldn't it be easier for them to do something? As long as someone strong at the king level of the Abyss does not take action, considering the strength of the women, the world is huge and they can be conquered. Even if they are besieged by abyssal creatures, they can leave calmly, and no one can trap them at all. Certainly. Even if someone with the strength of the King of the Abyss appears, they are not worried. Do you really think we don't have the strongest person here? Joke. Then, after a little discussion, the girls dispersed and started searching in the abyss and wilderness. Soon, everyone else received the summons from Mu Qingqian and Tao Yaoyao. The 2 of them have found a town. Judging from the scale, it seems quite small. In towns, the girls used magic techniques to hide their aura and presence, walking among them, their eyes constantly looking around. It seems that there is no place that sells maps. Ying Kaoj whispered, I don't know if these most common abyssal creatures know the location of the Abyss Council. Do you think we, the people of Daxia, will know where the Holy Land is? Qin Wanyu's speech immediately shut up Ying Kaoj. That's right, even if they are both existences in the abyss, but their level is not enough, they still cannot know the existence as the upper level. Then, how should we find the location of the Abyss Council? Qin Benjao said with some distress. Really, I finally reached the abyss, but I couldn't find my husband. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 594. What's going on? Why don't you go take a look in front? I think the place in front looks a bit like the city lord's palace. Tao Yaoyao pointed at the tall and magnificent building in the center of the town and suggested. Good idea. Mu Qingqian nodded and said in appreciation, I never thought that a little witch like you would one day be able to give useful suggestions. Of course, don't underestimate me, okay? Tao Yaoyao put her hands on her hips and said happily. But then, she was stunned. Something's wrong. Is Mu Qingqian saying that she didn't even have a brain before? She glared at Mu Qingqian fiercely. If things weren't right now, she would have wanted to fight Mu Qingqian, right? Moving forward quickly, Qin Benjao and others soon entered the building that looked like the city lord's palace. Based on Wan Qing's concealment methods, it would be impossible for a strong person below the level of the Abyss King to discover them. Entering an abyss is like entering an uninhabited land. Even with the reputation and prestige of the Su family girls in the world at the moment, if this kind of thing is spread, it will make people shocked and admired. As if taking a walk, the girls kept searching and walking in the house, and soon they caught a person with a high status. I am the guard general of the city. Who are you? The guard frowned and looked at the girls with an evil look. No matter what your origins are, I am a subordinate of the heavenly evil king. If you attack me, it is tantamount to provoking the heavenly evil king. If you offend a king of the abyss, even if there is another king behind you, you will never be able to live in the abyss. We are not originally from the abyss. Qin Benjao looked at some information, such as maps, found from the guard's room and nodded with satisfaction. Although it is relatively simple, the general location and distribution are still there. The divisions of each of the 9 domains, as well as the location of the Abyss Council, are also marked. As long as you have this map, you will have no problem finding your husband. Putting away the map, Qin Benjao called to the others, Master, sisters, let's go. We know Mr. Lang's location. You are actually human. The guard suddenly said in horror. Qin Benjao's words just now were already revealing her identity. How could he not guess it? Of course. Qin Benjao nodded. Human beings still dare to go deep into the abyss. Aren't you afraid of death? The guard's face was cold, with strong murderous intent. Tell me, what is your purpose of diving into the abyss? Of course we want our man back. Qin Benjao said seriously, my husband is in danger in your abyss, of course we have to come to save him. Taking such a risk and making such a big splash, just for a man? The guard's expression was uncertain, as if he was judging whether what the girl said was true or false. But it doesn't matter whether it's true or false. As humans, how can I let you go when you come to the abyss? Secretly making up his mind, the guard immediately took action. The energy in his body exploded, instantly breaking the rope that imprisoned him. Flying into the sky, however, the guard had no intention of escaping. Instead, he shouted loudly, "Human, sneak in!" Just for a moment. That hoarse voice spread throughout the city. And these 4 short words are enough to let all the fighting forces in the city know what to do. Then, just for a moment, there were countless people in the city flying up and rushing towards the side, coming menacingly. Fuse Hong. The moment the guard flew up, Wan Qing had already taken action and killed the guard. However, it's still a step too late. Standing outside the gate of the mansion, the girls looked at the abyss creatures surging in front of them, frowning slightly. Too bad, I don't know how much time this will waste. It's nothing, right? Qin Benjao said with a smile, there is already a lot of pressure and danger on Sulang's side. But as long as the news from our side reaches Sulang, those abyss kings will be distracted from dealing with us. Wouldn't the pressure Sulang face be much smaller? Hearing this, all the girls' eyes lit up. This seems to be true. So, let's make a big fuss in the 9 realms together. There is no high-end combat power like the King of the Abyss participating. It was just a town's garrison force, and it was impossible to cause any trouble to Qin Benjao and others. Just for a moment, the whole town fell into silence. All the abyss creatures who dared to attack Qin Benjao and others fell under their hands. Certainly, Qin Benjao and others did not kill too much. The weaker abyss creatures in the towns had no intention of taking action against Qin Benjao and others. Naturally, Qin Benjao and others will not embarrass them. They were here to get their men back, and even if they wanted to make a big fuss in the 9 regions, they really couldn't go too far. Otherwise, once the resistance of those abyss kings is aroused, it will not relieve Suliang's pressure, but increase the danger for Suliang. This is settled, let's go to the Abyss Parliament. Qin Benjao took out the map and unfolded it in front of everyone, 9 Abyss realms. When we go to the Abyss Parliament, we have to pass through several regions. Of course we won't go around places we haven't passed, but as long as we pass by, leaving some traces or something, is it right? Only when there is complete turmoil on their side will their husband's place be safer. All the women knew this very well and naturally had no objections. To this end, in their battle just now, they even let one person go to deliver information and attract the attention of the kings of the abyss. As for the dangers you will encounter along the way, don't be kidding. With the most powerful women in the world, even if the king of the abyss takes action, they may not be in any danger. Not to mention the 9 abyss realms after the abyss kings took away most of their power. It's simply vulnerable, isn't it? Calculating carefully, the combined power of all the girls exceeds that of Yu Ji and Sul Yang, so there is nothing to be afraid of. Then, after making up their minds, the girls once again set foot on the path forward. With the help of Qin Benjao's space-time power, in just a moment, they crossed a field and arrived under a city. Looking at the tall and majestic city wall, the goddesses looked indifferent and did not take it seriously at all. Volume 1 # Chapter 528 Are you making such a fuss just to find a man? This time, which one of us will take action? Wan Qing looked to her left and right and asked softly. Since he wanted to attract the attention of those kings of the abyss and reduce the pressure on his husband. Naturally, the momentum needs to be louder. Otherwise, what should we do if the information is passed on and people don't care at all? Let me do it. Jingmeng took a step forward and slowly drew out the long sword from his waist. When he knew that Sul Yang might be in danger, Jingmeng's reaction was actually no smaller than that of several others. Scenes from the past appeared in her mind, but the more she thought about it, the more panic she felt. If something happens to Sul Yang in the abyss. So no matter how strong your sword is, what's the use? There is no one person who can improve his swordsmanship. No matter how strong his swordsmanship is, it is meaningless. He stood slowly under the city wall. Jingmeng glanced at the guards on the city wall indifferently, and took action without saying a word. Moment. A bright sword light suddenly appeared, and between the sword energy, even this seemingly eternal city wall was split with a huge crack. The shocking sword intent lingered endlessly, tearing through the heavy clouds and smashing Ling Xiao. In an instant, it directly broke through the psychological defenses of all the abyssal creatures here. Such a terrifying existence, can we really fight against it? They indeed hate the living world to the extreme, and they are indeed fearless of death and kill bloody people. But even so, they still know how to be afraid. How could they still have the will to fight when facing an enemy whose gap was as big as a cloud of mud? Get back here, everyone. The guard stood on the city wall, shouting at the top of his lungs, but even he was trembling a little at the moment and couldn't help but want to escape. The abyss is nothing more than that. Jingmeng sneered, sheathed her sword, and turned back to the girls. Who are you? Why are you attacking us? The guard finally plucked up the courage, stood on the city wall, and asked the women below. We're just here to get our men back. Wan Qing's voice was as cold as ice. Naturally, she would not treat these abyss creatures like her own men. Tell your masters that I have come from this world to come to them to get our men back. If my man is even slightly injured, we will conquer your abyss. Say it. Wan Qing took the girls and left directly. Watching the departing figures of the girls gradually disappear, the guard finally couldn't hold on any longer and collapsed to the ground. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 595. Too horrible. That woman's aura is really terrifying. Just by Wan Qing's glance, the guard felt like he might be killed at any time. This strength is probably not much different from that of his own king, right? When did such horror appear in the abyss? Wrong. She just said that they are from this world. His heart skipped a beat, and the guard immediately realized the importance of the matter. The powerful man in this world actually came to the abyss, and he did so in such a high profile. Just to get their men back. This is a joke. Who are these men? If they are human beings, why are they in the abyss? Forget it, this is no longer something I can control. It is better to inform the king about this matter as soon as possible. Then, the guard immediately made arrangements for things in the city, and he quickly headed to the direction of the Abyss Council to find the king of this domain. Certainly. He also sent several of his men to deliver messages to the garrison guards in the cities ahead. As for whether to fight or pretend not to know, it's up to them. As for why he didn't intercept it? Are you kidding? He doesn't want to die yet. However, when his men rushed to the city in front, but he was shocked to find that that city had met the same fate as his own. One sword. With just one sword strike, the city wall that could be called immortal collapsed, causing countless casualties. Even the remaining people had completely lost their will to fight. This moment, all the girls teamed up to download the dungeon and caused a huge commotion in the 9 realms, causing chaos throughout the abyss. And as the girls walked along, information about the destroyed cities along the way has also been passed to the location of the Abyss Council. Then, in the Abyss Council, except for Yuji and Sul Yang, the other 8 kings gathered together again. Even those kings who have not yet received news from their own domain are not absent. However, a group of Abyss kings gathered, but they were all silent, not knowing what to say. After a long time, someone said, "You must have received the news about those human women, right?" As soon as these words came out, there was another silence. Just a few people caused chaos in the entire abyss. As kings, it was very embarrassing for them. What should we do? Do you have any ideas? The person who spoke glanced at everyone and spoke in a low voice. For now, the only solution is to fight. A king said with a hint of disdain in his voice, "It's just a few humans who dare to go deep into the abyss. Since they are looking for death, we might as well help them. The majesty of the abyss cannot be questioned or trampled upon." As soon as these words came out, someone immediately echoed, "Yes, it's just a few humans, but they only caused such a big chaos when we were not around. If we take action, any one of us can kill them all." However, this statement did not receive much agreement. With just one strike of the sword, the city wall can be chopped into pieces. According to the reports of the guards, the strength of the humans who broke into the abyss was probably not much weaker than a few of them. With such people together, even if they are, it will be difficult for them to win on their own. But this is an abyss. When we become kings and control a region, have you forgotten the power of our men? The evil king said with a hint of sarcasm, "A few human beings entering the abyss are making us the enemy of the entire abyss. Why should I take action myself? I can just send a few of my subordinates to capture them." As soon as these words came out, all the kings of the abyss nodded. Indeed, from the moment they became the king of the abyss, what they had was no longer just their own power. The 8 kings took action together, and the combined power of their legions was almost the power of the entire abyss. A mere human being in this world, with all the power in this world, cannot even deal with the queen of the abyss, let alone a few people, who can deal with the entire abyss. In that case, I'll just wait and go out to fight. A king nodded slowly with a firm expression, "This time, we must make sure they never come back." Then, several kings of the abyss gathered together and combined all the power they brought. Volume 1 #Chapter 529 Reunion, the too powerful harem group. The vast force rushed towards the route and direction of Qin Benjao and others in the information. Very smoothly, I met Qin Benjao and others outside a city. "Master, have we done something big?" Looking at the endless abyss creatures in front of her, Qin Benjao swallowed subconsciously. Such a number is not much compared to the number of the Queen of the Abyss men who entered the world before, right? And they looked at all these abyss creatures blocking them, looking menacing. Obviously, This is just for them. We have made such a big noise, and it is reasonable to attract their attention. Wan Qing was not surprised, in other words, they didn't show up until now, but it was a bit late. Then what should we do now? Ying Kaoj asked. At this moment, she was ready to complete the Tyrannosaurus posture and could start fighting at any time. There is only one battle. Wan Qing smiled faintly. My good disciple is faced with the threat of the other 8 Abyss Kings besides the Queen of the Abyss. Even if one of us appears in front of us, the pressure on the good disciple will be relieved. If we can involve the other 8 here, our master will be completely safe, right? Certainly. It is a bit unrealistic to involve all 8 of them here, but looking at the crowd of abyssal creatures in front of them, some of them are particularly powerful, highlighted like fireflies in the dark night. At least, there are 3 or 4 Abyss Kings coming. Wan Qing narrowed her eyes, murderous intent gradually filling the air. That being the case, for the safety of our master, we cannot let them leave properly. Even if they cannot be killed here, they must be held back so that they cannot cause trouble to their master. While the women were discussing the other side, the evil king who followed him walked out from among his subordinates and stood at the front. Humans, the abyss is not where you should come. I'll give you a chance, go back. Compared with a few inexplicable humans, Sul Yang, who holds the Emperor's certificate, is obviously more important. For the sake of proving the Emperor, it is okay to temporarily let these humans go. Just wait for the Emperor's certificate matter to be resolved. When the time comes, Yuji will be pushed out of the sequence of kings. Regardless of whether a king is born or not, the 8 kings can gather their strength and invade the world. At that time, the entire world is in their hands. It's just a few human beings. Wouldn't they be able to find and kill them easily? This is the demeanor of an emperor. However, facing the warning from the evil king, instead of feeling afraid, Wan Qing and others all took a step forward. Is it you who is making things difficult for my man? Wan Qing looked at Tianzai King coldly, her voice as cold as a sword. Your man? King Tianzai was stunned, and he was a little confused. What are you talking about? When did we make things difficult for your man? So, who is your man? Of course, this was included in the information submitted, but at that time, the evil king and others did not pay attention to it. A group of humans come to the abyss to find their man? I always feel that there is a sense of absurd humor. Rather than being serious about this kind of thing, it is better to regard it as an excuse. But now it seems that they are serious. With such bold women as you, your men would have died in the abyss long ago. The evil king snorted coldly, in the abyss, you won't survive if you are too arrogant. Since you don't want to. I was just about to say my last words before the war started. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 596. But halfway through King Tianzai's words, Wan Qing from the opposite camp suddenly took action. A palm struck from far away in the air, and as the wind roared from the palm, the power that could even tear the heaven and earth apart came straight towards the evil king. Just a moment. The heavenly evil king didn't even have time to react before he was sent flying by Wan Qing's palm. He was unable to resist at all. Facing Sul Yang, Tianzai King was no match, let alone Wan Qing. And until he fell to the ground, vomiting blood, and was unable to get up. In the ears of King Tianzai, Wan Qing's cold and angry voice came, "Our husband, are you the one who can talk nonsense? It's just you who want to hurt our husband, just dream." Puff. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, the heavenly evil king stood up with difficulty with the support of several other kings. Staring angrily in the direction of Wan Qing and others, the evil king gritted his teeth and said, "Attack, don't let any of these human women go." It would be fine if he was defeated by Sul Yang. Now, any human woman can seriously injure herself? I still want the face of being the king of the abyss. Today, I must use the blood of my enemies to wash away the humiliation of my evil king. Seeing his men submerging Wan Qing and others, the evil king took a long breath, snorted coldly, and then said, "Let's go, I'll just wait for the news when I get back to the camp. How can a few humans be the opponents of our legion and others?" To this, the other kings all nodded and agreed with this statement. Sul Yang sat at the table, looking thoughtful. "What are you thinking about?" Yuji came forward and asked curiously. Immediately, without waiting for Sul Yang to respond, she slapped the table in front of her, pouted and said dissatisfiedly, "Hurry up and continue, it's just a game, there's no need to think about it for such a long time." "I'm thinking about business, no nonsense." Sul Yang waved his hand and said seriously. "What's the matter? It's clear that I want to show off." However, Yuji muttered dissatisfiedly, "Obviously I am almost winning, but the loser must be punished." "Sul Yang, you don't want to use this method to escape punishment, do you?" Now, in front of the two people, there was a complete chess set. Certainly, this set of things was all made by Sul Yang. After all, after trying many two-player games, Sul Yang found helplessly that he was no match for Yuji in terms of reaction, speed, etc. Even when playing a flying chess game, Monopoly, or something like that, Yuji can perfectly control the power and make the dice play the numbers she wants. After several games, Sul Yang never won at all. According to what Yuji said, the loser must accept punishment. Sul Yang himself couldn't remember how many punishments he had received. This is really an overly exciting and humiliating memory. In desperation, Sul Yang had no choice but to create this kind of game that competes with intelligence and sees the overall situation. At least, in this aspect, there is no obvious gap between me and Yuji. As for why you don't play Go, it can only be said that there are too many Go pieces, and Yuji simply cannot wait for Sul Yang to finish them all. Still waiting to take advantage of Sul Yang justifiably, ahem, how about punishing Sul Yang? It doesn't matter what game it is, as long as it can punish Sul Yang. Yuji's attitude was very determined. Not to mention, Go is also relatively complicated and takes a long time to learn, so Sul Yang gave up the idea and instead made a chess set, intending to avenge his past humiliation. But now it seems he is no match for Yuji. What the hell is going on? This is obviously her first time playing these games, right? Scamming or something, how could I do such a thing? Sul Yang said sternly, "I'm really thinking about business. Haven't you noticed that it's a bit too quiet today?" "Too quiet?" Yuji blinked, and after Sul Yang reminded her, she also reacted, "It seems to be too quiet." In the past, even if the two of them were in the room all the time, various dangers would still come to the door. Trouble continues, and the person behind the scenes seems to be determined to kill Sul Yang, and a series of conspiracies and schemes are found on Sul Yang and Yuji. Many times, the two of them didn't even have time to finish a whole game. Certainly, these dangers and calculations are not dangerous at all to Sul Yang and Yuji. They can solve them easily. But this has always been the case. Sul Yang and Yuji have been in a high degree of tension, always vigilant, and the pressure is also great. But today, all these troubles seem to have disappeared. From the time Sul Yang made the game until now, the two of them have been having fun for a long time, and there has been no trouble at all. It feels like the people behind the scenes have completely given up. Of course Sul Yang would not believe this. Those Abyss Kings were determined to obtain the Emperor's certificate in his hands, and they all had the intention of killing Sul Yang. Even at the last moment, they will definitely try. How could you give up so easily? Perhaps something happened that he didn't know about. It's impossible to give up. If something unexpected happens that we don't know about, they have changed their plans and are brewing a huge conspiracy. Yuji frowned and thought, but now it was almost nothing. Even she couldn't guess anything. Why don't we go find out the news? After a moment, Yuji suggested. Well, I think so too. Suliang nodded and stood up. Let's go, let's set off now. The speed will be faster. The danger will be discovered earlier and we can respond earlier. However, before Suliang could take action, Yuji directly took Suliang's hand. It's not too late to act. Yuji said expressionlessly, pointing to the chess game in front of her. The game has to be finished. It's not too late for games or something, right? The corner of Suliang's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Let's hurry up and find out the news. What if there is really any danger? No less than this moment. The punishment can be later, but the game must be scored to win or lose. Yuji said seriously, don't think that I don't know, you just want to use this method to cheat and escape punishment. How could I be such a person? Suliang explained, but seeing Yuji's disbelief, he could only sigh helplessly and sit down again. Okay, I'll just listen to you. In the end, I still couldn't escape this punishment. Suliang Yang sighed, his eyes lost focus. Even if the pressure is relieved, it's still too difficult to accept punishment and so on, isn't it? Several Abyss Kings gathered together and looked at each other in silence. What exactly went wrong? It was obviously a day of happily scheming against Suliang and Yuji. Inexplicably, several human women appeared who said they wanted their men back, causing a scene in the abyss. As the kings of the abyss, they responded immediately and led their legions to attack head-on. If the powers of several abyss kings were combined to deal with several human women, wouldn't it be easy to capture them? However, why haven't we captured those human women until now? Not only that. After a battle, the casualties on their side were so heavy that it was simply unacceptable. And those human women not only had no losses, they were not even injured. Several of the Abyss Kings attacked together, but they were all beaten back. If they had not retreated early, they would have almost died in the hands of those human women. When did humans become so powerful? It's just a few human women, but they are so powerful. If there are such strong people in the present world, then when they invade the present world, they are going to seize the present world, but they are going to die. It's really hard for Yuji to be able to guard the border for so many years and keep such a powerful enemy out of the abyss. A king couldn't help but sigh. These words aroused the unanimous agreement of several other kings. Only now did they realize that without Yuji guarding the border, it seemed that they were under greater pressure. What is the problem here? Why is it so powerful in this world? Now, they all couldn't help but reflect. Could we really be wrong about Yuji? In fact, Yuji has been resisting humans with all her strength, instead of occupying the border and making no moves. But in reality, it's entirely because Qin Benjao and other girls are too perverted and too powerful. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 597. The strength of the girls is already at the strongest level in the world. Needless to say, Wangqing and Jingmeng. After integrating her former powers, I am afraid that her strength is not too far away from the level of 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen, and she is the most outstanding among all Tao masters. And Jingmeng also reached the peak of his swordsmanship after several breakthroughs in the swordsmanship, with few opponents. Qin Benjao's power in time and space is strange and inexplicable, but it is also very powerful. Among his peers, apart from Suliang, there is probably no opponent at all. Like Suliang, she has transcended the limitations of the younger generation of geniuses. Yang Kao's strength may not be as good as Qin Benjao's, but with the powerful bonus of the tyrant dragon posture, it is not difficult to stand proudly at the pinnacle of the dynasty and fight across borders. He is also invincible among his peers. Whether it is Tan Qinjia, who has developed her charming body to the extreme, or Qin Wanyu, who has entered Taoism with the piano, they have their own strengths and can be called rare masters in the world. Even Mu Qingqian and Tao Yaoyao, who are the weakest among the girls, had two souls in one body in their previous life. Even though they are divided into two different individuals in this life, they can work together with the same tacit understanding and are far more powerful than one person. Volume 1 Chapter 530. You are just helping us relieve the pressure on our good disciples. Not to mention, both of them are at the pinnacle of genius. Such a team of people, even if they search the abyss of the world, can hardly find anyone who can compare with them. Otherwise, even Yuji would have difficulty guarding the border of the abyss. The information gap made it seem like the Abyss Kings had misunderstood something. Then, at this moment, a problem was placed in front of the kings and needed to be solved urgently. How should we deal with these humans? Several Abyss Kings looked at each other with this question in their hearts. If they are ignored, the entire abyss will fall into chaos in a short time. Even if they are opponents who cannot stop them, no matter how many people they have, what can they do to them? It's just a few humans. The abyss is our territory. Are we going to let them do whatever they want? The evil king gritted his teeth and said with an extremely angry expression. A group of abyss kings gathered together, and they were still in their own territory of the abyss. They were unable to do anything to a few humans. Shame, this is simply the shame of these kings of the abyss. Among the several kings present, although most of them took action, only the king of heavenly evil was seriously injured. After all, the other kings just made tentative moves, fighting if they could win, and retreating if they couldn't. Only King Tianzai directly angered Wan Qing when he saw her for the first time. Not being directly beaten to death by Wan Qing can be regarded as the Tianzai king's luck. That's why the evil king is the one who can't stand the current situation the most. The woman who hurt him. It trampled on his dignity as an emperor, how could he let it go? It's just a few humans. They may be able to resist us for a while, but they definitely can't resist us forever. Another king said in a deep voice, "Everyone, please stop being so petty. Humans have invaded our territory. If we 8 kings work together and cannot kill those few humans, we in the abyss will probably be there is no majesty left. In the future, wouldn't everyone be able to imitate those humans?" Exactly. The evil king immediately agreed, no matter the cost, drag those humans to death here. If they want to escape, we will take action. Although they may not be Wan Qing and Jing Meng's opponents, they can still hold them back for a while. I don't dare to lose much, this battle will be won. A king whispered. This battle must be won. Several other kings echoed with firm expressions. Should we drag Yuji along with us? Suddenly someone suggested, since Yuji has been able to resist these powerful humans from the abyss for so many years, I think she should have a lot of experience fighting humans. If she had taken action, wouldn't our losses have been much smaller? Yuji's strength is one level higher among them. Just because they can't win doesn't mean Yuji can't win either. However, the words were spoken, but not even a single person agreed. There is no need to go into details about Yuji's relationship with them. When they were in the Abyss Parliament, they took turns taking action with various conspiracies and calculations. First, they prevented Yuji and Suliang from reaching the Abyss Parliament, and then they even tried to assassinate Suliang. There is no way to ease this kind of relationship. Want Yuji to help them? Absolutely impossible. Not to mention, Suliang's identity has not yet been determined. Even if there's no Yuji, there's no harm in us taking action ourselves. The evil king said coldly. First, he was beaten violently by Yuji, and then he was defeated by Suliang in front of Yuji. The resentment of the heavenly evil king towards Yuji has reached the limit. In that case, let's decide like this. All the kings nodded in agreement. It's just more losses, and they are not unable to bear these losses. Since you don't want to take Yuji with you, then forget it. At the same time, in the battlefield outside, the weaker Mu Qingqian and Tao Yaoyao were already a little tired at this moment. After all, she is the weakest among the women. When the Abyss Kings took action, they naturally focused on the two women, which made them spend a little effort. Sister, can we retreat? Tao Yaoyao came to Qin Benjiao's side and said helplessly. In the present world, we fought against these abyssal creatures. Why did we still fight against these abyssal creatures when we arrived in the abyss? It's not challenging at all, it's so boring. When can I go find my brother Suliang? I haven't seen my brother Suliang for several days. I miss him so much. Brother Suliang is running out of energy. We've held on long enough, haven't we? Tao Yaoyao persuaded, the pressure on brother Suliang must have been reduced a lot. At this time, we should meet up with brother Suliang. After hearing this, Wan Qing thought for a moment and nodded slowly. Really? They have been fighting here for a long time, not only dragging several kings here, but also attracting countless abyss creatures. Looking at the number, I am afraid that among the 9 realms of the abyss, except for the Queen of the Abyss, the other 8 have subordinates here. This kind of record is enough to share the pressure on Suliang's side. Okay, let's leave now and meet up with our good disciple. Wan Qing smiled at Tao Yaoyao, and then planned to leave with the girls. But at this moment, suddenly the King of the Abyss took action and delayed them in place. Is this, dragging us to death here? Wan Qing immediately understood what the other party meant. But, do you really think that this little difficulty can stop us? Do you think you are holding us back? No, you are just helping us relieve the pressure on our good disciples. The other side. Suliang pulled Yuji, who was still a little weak, and started taking action. She's both good at food and fun-loving, I'm talking about Yuji. Every punishment, under Yuji's teasing, will eventually turn Suliang's back. Certainly. Suliang would naturally not do anything to disgrace his wives. But even so, wanting to deal with Yuji is nothing to Suliang. Therefore, at the end of every punishment, Yuji will be like this now, with no strength at all and can only move by being pulled by Suliang. But Yuji never gets tired of it, and her provocations are endless. Suliang swore that at the beginning, he really wanted to use this method to make Yuji retreat. God knows why things turned out like this. We agreed to wait until the matter is over before punishing him, but you insist on punishing him immediately. Suliang said helplessly to Yuji, how are we going to investigate you now? Volume 1 Chapter 531, The Gathering of the Detachment of Women. Snort. Yuji snorted softly and looked away from Suliang. See this? Suliang smiled helplessly, okay, I was wrong, don't be angry. Continuing to explore in the Abyss Council, Suliang frowned and said, it seems that something has happened. It feels like there are fewer of the king's subordinates here, and they are almost invisible. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 598. What is it that can make the kings put aside their problems against us? It's not that Suliang likes trouble or is arrogant. The emperor's certificate is the proof of embarking on the road to becoming an emperor. Holding the emperor's certificate, you have the qualifications to become an emperor. How could the kings of the abyss not be moved by such a thing? How could they leave it to a person of unknown origin like him? From the past few days, the kings of the abyss have targeted them, which is enough to show the determination of the kings. But now, The kings actually gave up on them temporarily. Could it be that something happened in their respective territories? Are your subordinates rebelling, or are powerful enemies appearing? Isn't it enough to make them lose everything? It shouldn't be enough to make them give up on their side, right? Is this your arrangement? Suliang asked Yuji beside him curiously. In today's abyss, apart from the fact that he and Yuji can trust each other, the two of them can be said to be enemies in the world. Apart from Yuji's arrangement, Suliang really couldn't think of any other reason. Not me. Yuji shook her head, frowning and thinking carefully, her heart also full of confusion. She could anticipate today's situation, but it was simply impossible for her to make arrangements for the 8 kings at the same time. But no matter what, the current changes are temporarily beneficial to us, but we don't know what the actual situation is. Yuji thought about it and said to Suliang, we still need to investigate. But how are we going to investigate? Suliang was a little distressed. They didn't have any clues at all, and even if they wanted to investigate, they couldn't find anything. Thought for a moment. Yuji said firmly, it's better to ask the other Abyss Kings. Since they made the arrangement, they must know the reason. Good idea. Suliang's eyes lit up, he nodded, and then he and Yuji went to the place where several other kings lived. However, I searched all the way, but I didn't see even a single king. Where have they all gone? Suliang was completely confused. He couldn't find any of the 8 kings. They can't all go back, right? The 10-day date is coming in a blink of an eye, and it is totally unreasonable for them to leave now. Could it be? Yuji guessed and thought of a possibility. She turned around and saw Suliang, but got the same answer from Suliang's eyes. Parliament of the Abyss. The two said in unison. The other 8 Abyss Kings may have simply abandoned the two of them and were conducting their own meetings. With this guess, the two of them went straight to the conference hall of the Abyss Parliament without hesitation. Really? Here, the two of them met other Abyss Kings. Certainly. Not all the kings are left here, just a few. But as long as someone is here, Suliang and Yuji can understand what happened, which actually caused the kings to temporarily abandon their side. A few of them are very interested. Yuji chuckled lightly, walked forward, and sat directly on her seat. Abandon us too, you are discussing among yourselves. What, are you discussing how to deal with us? How can it be? Someone shook his head and smiled. This person was a member of the previous neutral faction. Facing Suliang and Yuji, the king could still maintain the most basic etiquette and posture. It's just that there are some changes in the abyss that need us to deal with. It has nothing to do with the two of them. Since it is an accident in the abyss, how can it have nothing to do with Gu? Yuji pretended to be interested. Gu is also a member of the king. Guarding the abyss is also Gu's responsibility. What happened? Why don't you tell Gu too? After hearing this, the remaining kings looked at each other and nodded. Although those few human women did not affect Yuji's border, after all, Yuji was the king, and she still had her own intelligence network. Sooner or later, information will be obtained. In this case, it's better to tell her now. He also avoided being beaten up by her and Suliang. In the end, not only did he have to hand over the information, but he also lost face. It's really not worth the gain. It's not a big deal. The neutral king smiled and said, it's just that a few human women came from this world, bypassed the border, and wreaked havoc in the territory of me and others. Their reason is to get their men back. How could anyone believe such a ridiculous reason? In order to maintain the majesty of the abyss, I am waiting to take action, but of course I will not let. However, halfway through the words, the king looked at Suliang and Yuji's increasingly serious expressions, feeling a little confused. Think carefully. It seemed that when he told the reasons for those human women, the expressions of these two people changed. You two, don't you really believe the reasons of those human women? The king said in disbelief. How is it possible? Such a ridiculous reason. Yuji said casually, but couldn't help but look at Sul Yang. From the very beginning, the moment several human women were heard entering the abyss, they both had guesses in their minds at the same time. Those people, I'm afraid they are Benjao and the others, right? And when they heard the reason for wanting their men back, Sul Yang and Yuji immediately confirmed it. It must be Benjao and the others. Why are they here? Isn't this nonsense? No, we have to find a way to see it. Sul Yang frowned and thought. That's when someone knocked on the door and came in with a letter. The neutral king glanced at it and frowned slightly. It turned out to be their request for help. Are those human women so powerful? In that case, let's go and see it together. Sul Yang suggested immediately. The kings had no reason to refuse Sul Yang's proposal. As the heir to the emperor, especially the heir to the emperor that they recognized, he should not have stayed out of such a big thing happening in the abyss. It was already inappropriate for them to act on their own without telling Sul Yang and Yuji. Now that Sul Yang took the initiative to ask for help, they had no reason to refuse. Not to mention, Sul Yang's words were approved by Yuji. It's rare for Yuji to take the initiative. According to what was said in the request for help, Tianzai King and others were almost unable to withstand the situation, and the losses were simply too great. Now that Yuji is taking action, their losses will definitely be much smaller. How can you refuse this? How can you refuse this? Without too much thinking, the neutral king nodded and agreed, okay, if you are willing to take action, that is the best. How can I stop you? Then everyone made some preparations and immediately embarked on the road to the battlefield. As soon as he set off, Sul Yang burst out at full speed. Even several kings could not catch up with his speed. That is his wife. Sul Yang is also very worried. Of course he believed in the strength and judgment of his ladies, and was determined that nothing would go wrong with them. But his wife is in danger. No matter what, she still has to worry. The most important thing is that until now, Sul Yang still can't figure out what happened to his ladies. He clearly didn't tell them any news. Why did they suddenly fall into the abyss? Although there are indeed many crises on his side, until now, Sul Yang was confident that he could handle them without much danger. For some reason, Sul Yang always felt that there might be some reason behind this that he didn't know about. After flying all the way, Sul Yang and others arrived on the battlefield in just a moment. Ignoring the few kings who walked into the camp and exchanged information with Tianzai King and others, Sul Yang went straight to the battlefield. Really? Among the abyssal creatures like the ocean tide, I saw my own ladies. It's really them. Sul Yang sighed, pleased, but moved, but also full of doubts. Why did they come suddenly? I can't figure it out. But no matter what, the most important thing now is to meet up with his ladies and take them all away. If the battle continues like this, no matter how powerful my ladies are, it will be difficult for them to withstand such a high-intensity battle. You go and ask those kings to stop, and I will help Benjao and the others. After simply saying something to Yuji, Sul Yang did not hesitate, drew his sword, and rushed straight into the abyssal creatures that were like rolling waves. Just for a moment. He then tore through the many obstacles and came to his ladies. And the other side. Seeing Sul Yang's back gradually disappearing, Yuji turned around and entered the camp without hesitation. Although these people were one step ahead of her, which made Yuji feel a little unhappy. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 599. But she did this also for Sul Yang. If something happens to Qin Benjao and others in the abyss. Of course Suliang would not blame her, but Suliang himself would definitely be sad for a long time. This is not what Yuji wants to see. Certainly. As for her alone, how could she get the 8 Abyss Kings to agree to stop? Yuji said that she could convince them. If they don't listen, use physical persuasion. There is always a method that works. For Suliang, even if he becomes the enemy of the entire abyss, what can he do? Yuji has been doing this kind of thing for thousands of years. He walked into the camp without hesitation. Yuji opened her mouth and said, "Let your people stop, this is a misunderstanding." Misunderstand? All the kings of the abyss were stunned. Immediately. Someone immediately frowned. "Yuji, don't forget your identity. You are the queen of the abyss, and those women are all humans. Speaking for a group of humans, what do you think you are doing? You don't need to say anything about how I behave alone." Yuji snorted softly, her eyes cold. "I will only give you a chance. If you don't stop, I will find a way to make you stop." While talking, a faint murderous aura seeped out and surged towards the kings, instantly causing them to freeze. If she doesn't agree, Yuji will definitely kill herself. Such a premonition suddenly appeared in the hearts of the 8 kings. "Yuji, you are just one person, do you really want to go against the 8 of us?" The evil king roared angrily, "The abyss is not your territory alone. We are all kings. You don't need to control how we act. Do you really think that we will be afraid of you? The combined strength of the few of us is more than enough to deal with you alone." Noisy. Speaking calmly, Yuji raised her eyes and glanced at Tianxi King. Next moment, with a flash of figure, Yuji suddenly appeared beside Tianxi King. Before all the kings could react, she took action and knocked Tianxi King away in an instant. "Huagu will only say this once, whether you live or die, it all depends on your choice." Yuji's eyes swept across the kings. "The power of one person may indeed not be a match for the power of your men, but it can still be done if you all stay here." As soon as these words came out, everyone's expressions changed. Really? Yuji has murderous intentions towards them. Why? Give me a reason. The neutral king said solemnly. Even he could not maintain his character at this moment, and his face was very ugly. "I will explain to you later. For now, let your men stop," Yuji said coldly, with a firm attitude. After hearing this, several kings looked at each other and shook their heads with a wry smile. If you can't win again and again, what else can you do? At the same time, the other side. Suliang. The moment Qin Benjao saw Suliang's figure, she immediately abandoned her opponent and jumped forward happily. She also didn't expect that before she went to find her husband actually came over. "My dear disciple, why are you here?" Wan Qing also immediately became happy. "Although I haven't seen my master for just a few days, why does it feel like so long has passed? And is your master much stronger?" "As expected of the master, he is truly amazing. You guys are really fooling around." Suliang smiled with emotion. "As soon as I heard the news that humans entered the abyss, I guessed that it was you, so I rushed over immediately." "As expected, it was really you." To this, the girls just laughed, pretending not to hear what Suliang said. "Anyway, he is here to save his husband. Of course, whether his husband allows it or not is not considered." Seeing the looks of the girls, Suliang couldn't help but smile. He was already very happy if the ladies could come. "We'll talk about the rest when it's safe." Suliang blocked the girls behind him and faced the surging enemies in front of him. "Now, I will take you out first." The edge of the long sword in his hand is pointed directly at the enemy in front of him. Even though the abyss creatures in front of him were rolling like ocean waves with almost no end, Suliang didn't feel the slightest bit afraid. Suliang said calmly, "If you still don't want to die, Just go back. Volume 1 # Chapter 532. Why are you just watching? Your respective kings will issue orders soon. If you persist in your persistence, even if you die, it will be meaningless. Naturally, Suliang had no intention of holding back on abyssal creatures. But after all, the most important thing right now is to bring all his ladies back. Suliang didn't want to get entangled with these abyssal creatures here. Regarding Suliang's words, these abyssal creatures looked at each other, and then, there was still endless killing intent permeating among them. The most common abyss creatures may not know Suliang, but the leaders of various legions are definitely no strangers to Suliang. After all, holding the Emperor's certificate, being identified as the Emperor's heir, and being targeted by their respective kings, they are still alive and well until now. Suliang has been in the limelight recently, how could they not know each other? Even some of them had received orders from their kings to target Suliang. Even with this, they would not let Suliang go. Not to mention, the people Suliang wants to save are still a few humans. How can this be allowed? I didn't receive any orders from the king. One of them said in a deep voice, what our swords point to is the king's will. We will not stop until the king gives the order. Immediately, this man raised the sword in his hand high, and then dropped it heavily. Moment. Waves of roars shook the sky, and the tide of abyssal creatures surged towards Suliang and others. Since you are looking for death, then I will help you. Suliang frowned and stopped holding back. Since he couldn't end it all in a more labor-saving way, Suliang didn't mind taking action. These abyss creatures are not within the scope of his fear. Follow me and I'll take you out. Speaking to his wife behind him, Suliang took action first, slashing horizontally with his sword and wiping out all the abyssal creatures hundreds of meters in front of him, leaving no one behind. At this moment, Suliang is in the realm of Mingquan, but he is able to compete with the strength of the King of the Abyss. These abyssal creatures are really no match for Suliang. What happened next made Suliang a little surprised. Don't worry, Suliang, I will protect you. Qin Benjao's voice rang in Suliang's ears. Next moment, Suliang seemed to feel an inexplicable energy wave emerging from his body. This moment, the enemies in front of Suliang seemed to move slowly, and their attack speed was less than half of what it was before. Not only that, Suliang's own speed seemed to be much faster. Each sword required less time to accumulate power. When the sword energy was released, the vertical and horizontal speed was more than twice as fast, making it even more difficult for people to react. This seems to be the power of time. Has the time on your body been sped up? Suliang was suddenly enlightened. He used the power of time to assist him, and forcibly interfered with himself, a person who transcended the realm of life spring. Could his girlfriend's time and space power be so tyrannical? Turning around subconsciously, I saw. Around Qin Benjao, two powers of different attributes were superimposed and playing a role. Various spatial cracks always appear in unexpected places. While helping Qin Benjao move her position, they also exert extremely powerful destructive power, tearing into pieces all those who dare to get close. And at the same time, with the power of time activated, Qin Benjao's own speed was so fast that it seemed as if she could not see clearly, while the enemies around her were all sluggish. Just for a moment, countless enemies fell into Qin Benjao's hands. And on the other side, Tan Kinja has brought the power of Mei Ti to the extreme. Her attack methods are complex and diverse, and her strength is unparalleled. The enemies around her showed no will to resist. They just gave up resistance and allowed Tan Kinja to take action. What's more, they would even turn around and attack their companions. Not far from Tan Kinja, my villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 600. Yang Kaoj completely unlocked the Tyrannosaurus posture. After several rounds of training, the tyrant dragon that Ying Chao Ji was now in was very domineering and unparalleled in strength. Every move carries extremely outrageous speed and power, which is frightening. And next to Ying Kaoj, Qin Wanyu held the long harp in her hand. As she played the harp, inexplicable energy surged and turned into an attack, killing the enemy invisible. That's not all. As the sound of the piano changes, the passionate music can raise the fighting spirit of the surrounding girls and make the enemy tremble with fear. The plaintive music can directly weaken the enemy's fighting spirit. Entering Taoism with the piano can be said to have allowed Qin Wanyu to develop to the extreme. A little behind Qin Wanyu and Ying Kaoj, Mu Qingqian and Tao Yaoyao were fighting side by side. Their tacit understanding was very good, and their different styles of moves actually made the two of them blend together. The combat power that can be exerted, even if it is the first time to enter the sea of suffering and transcendence, can't help but be frightened. The most outrageous ones were Wan Qing and Jing Meng. Each of them held a sword, and the sword light was bright. The sword energy was vertical and horizontal, and a vacuum area of several hundred meters was cut out of them. As if they were in a deserted place, the two of them seemed to be strolling on the battlefield, killing the enemies around them with fear. My ladies are simply too powerful, right? Su Liang couldn't help but sigh. Talk about it? He has spent much less time fighting side by side with his wives recently. I never imagined that in such a short period of time, the strength of my ladies could improve to this extent. It's really shocking. Just when everyone was about to break out of the siege and arrived in front of the camp, including Yuji, a total of 9 Abyss Kings suddenly appeared, standing above everyone's heads. Everyone stop it! Yuji glanced at the group of abyss creatures below. The kings ordered that all of them stop their actions. Anyone who dares to take action again will be killed without mercy. As soon as these words came out, all the abyssal creatures stopped. Although Yuji is not their king. But didn't you see that all the 9 kings of the abyss were standing there, and no one refuted Yuji's words? This can be seen as the overall opinion of the 9 kings of the abyss. They do not want to die meaninglessly in the hands of the king. Then, just for a moment, all the abyssal creatures stopped and stood aside blankly, not knowing what their king meant. Stop in the middle of a fight with a group of humans. Why? Could it be that these humans just don't care? However, but they didn't see the helplessness in their king's eyes. We don't want to stop either, but we have the final say. Yuji can hang up any one of us and beat him. Even if 8 people join forces, it is still unknown whether they can put pressure on Yuji. Do you think we don't want to fight? And at the same time, Su Liang looked up at the sky and looked at Yuji. Immediately, both of them showed a knowing smile. The girls watching on the side immediately pouted. Volume 1 # Chapter 533 The unsociable queen naturally needs help. The kings looked at the mess below, with a trace of heartache flashing in their eyes. In any case, this loss is too much. In order to drag Qin Benjao and others down here, the 8 kings worked together and spared no effort to attack Qin Benjao and others, regardless of losses. Although the losses are not included, if the losses are too great, it will be difficult for them to bear it. The people who were transferred this time lost half of their number. Although it is only a small part of their overall strength, even so, their strength has been weakened a lot. The most important is, with such losses, they actually gained nothing. Qin Benjao and others who wanted to deal with them were still safe and sound. Su Liang and Yuji were even more intact. They were even severely threatened by Yuji, and they were completely embarrassed. It's not enough to lose soldiers and generals, but you also lose face. What kind of king of the abyss is this? For a while, the expressions of several abyss kings were as dark as ink. Obviously, their minds were not very calm. But Su Liang won't care about them. They are enemies. What do they do to them? What does it have to do with them? At least my ladies are safe, that's enough. Without any further hesitation, Suliang led his ladies through the crowd and came to Yuji's side. Thank you, you came in time. Suliang thanked Yuji softly. Shaking her head, Yuji smiled and said, how could I not be able to do what you asked me to do? So far, I have done very well in everything you asked me to do. Let's go back. Suliang smiled and patted Yuji's little head. He swore that this was completely a subconscious behavior. These days when spending time with Yuji, the two of them had long been used to this level of intimacy. However, for the girls behind him, this is completely wrong. Looking at each other with strange expressions, the girls felt reassured. It seems. Did my husband really capture the Queen of the Abyss? Isn't this a little too fast? After only a few days away, my husband has already succeeded? But this doesn't seem so strange. Immediately, all the girls looked at Qin Binjao. They still remember what Qin Binjao said when Suliang just left. Lang Jun will definitely be able to capture the Queen of the Abyss. Qin Binjao, who said this at that time, was so confident and cute. However, now it seems Qin Binjao was obviously foresight. All I can say is that he is worthy of being the first person to follow Lang Jun. Such eyesight and understanding are indeed incomparable to them. Seeing that Suliang had already taken Yuji forward, the girls hurriedly followed. Anyway, they all came to protect their husbands. Now that they have found their husbands, of course they must stay together. As for the rest, it's not too late to wait until it's safe. Although the fighting has stopped, strictly speaking, it is not too safe now. And just then, but the evil king suddenly said, wait a minute. Hearing this, Suliang and Yuji stopped at the same time and turned to look at the king of heavenly evil, with a bit of coldness in their eyes. King Tianzai, if you are seeking death, I will help you. Yuji's voice was cold, and she had no intention of giving any face to Tianzai King. Why do I need you to take action? Overuse of materials is also a waste. I can do this kind of thing. Suliang followed closely. Just when they were about to leave, King Tianzai stopped them, and Suliang subconsciously thought that he hadn't given up yet. Suliang would not be polite to anyone who wanted to harm his wife. And after listening to the words of the two men, the face of the heavenly evil king became extremely ugly. He is a king of the abyss after all. How can you allow people to treat you like this? Shame, shame, and humiliation. But he can't beat him at all. He can't even beat Suliang, let alone the stronger Yuji. His face was extremely ugly, and he finally calmed down the anger in his heart. The heavenly evil king gritted his teeth and said, Yuji, you asked us to stop. We stopped, but should you explain to me what is going on? How on earth did you get involved with these humans? Or, in the years you have been guarding the border, you have defected to the human side. As soon as these words came out,